And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside Los
Angeles. I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to The Bald Truth. It's great to be back in my own studio here in Los Angeles. Thank you so much for joining us. Phone number 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. Live from Los Angeles, live from TBT Studios here in my home in Los Angeles. Again, great to be back. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are new to the broadcast, don't know who I am or why I am here, I am a consumer advocate for men and women suffering with hair loss, author of The Bald Truth and The Truth About Women's Hair Loss. Also the author, well, I just said, and The Truth About Women's Hair Loss. That's, again, going out the night before my show is not a good idea. And I'm also the founder of the American Hair Loss Association. What does that mean? Well, you know, 2/3 of you by the age of 35 will suffer with some degree of hair loss as guys. 40% of hair loss sufferers are women. And what that means is that this is a silent epidemic of biblical proportions. It affects just about every household in the world to some degree or another. That's big. Most of you will experience some degree of hair loss in your lifetime. And sadly, about 20% of you will start to deal with it before the age of 21. So all of you young guys out there that are watching and listening to the broadcast through the GFQ network and through Stickcam and Ustream and iTunes Radio and Stitcher Radio and all the different online resources that we're broadcasting the program on right now, realize you're not alone. All right? I mean, you're young. It sucks. I started to lose my hair at the age of, I noticed it around 21, 22. And I have been fortunate enough to save a lot of hair using FDA-approved medication. Got a little bit of a shellac job and a paint job going on. But you know what? I'm 46 years old. And I've been able to enjoy, a relatively decent, quasi comb-over looking head of hair for most of my life. And I feel pretty good about that. So what we're here to do is to guide you in a safe direction, to provide a safe place for you guys to come and talk and to share your thoughts and experiences about, the difficulties of life being a hair loss sufferer, and also to save you from a lot of bullshit that's, out there. This is a $3.5 billion a year business. And 99% of the products that are out there that claim to stop, prevent, or treat hair loss just don't work. Complete nonsense. Bullshit. Will not help you one iota. Got a little radio frequency interference because of my iPhone. And that's just the way it is. So if you're new to the broadcast, honestly, this is your safe place. I'm not here to sell you shit. I don't sell anything. There are 2 FDA-approved products that work. There are some great things coming down the pipeline. There are a handful of doctors in North America and around the world who are performing truly state-of-the-art hair transplantation, but that's it. That's what we got. But there is life after hair loss. There's real hope out there. And, for all you guys who are just tuning in, and maybe some of the women out there who are like, what's the big deal? It's only hair loss. Listen, if you can deal with it, if you're equipped to deal with losing your hair and seeing your appearance erode with your hairline, then you know what? Who's better than you? Who's better than you? Honestly, I wish that I was. But I wasn't equipped to deal with it. It effed me up completely. It caused me a tremendous amount of anxiety and depression at a very young age. And I did everything possible to save every strand of hair, as crazy as it seems for some of you guys out there. There are millions of you guys who are just like me. and that's why we have this platform. Phone number is 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. Went out to dinner with my fun but insane hockey player buddy and his wife last night. And, stayed up a little late, had a couple of drinks, had them over after dinner to, shoot some pool and to, drink in a safe environment. But it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea anyway to drink the night before my show. Anyway, 888-659-3727 is the phone number. We're going to go right to the phones. Who else has been holding on for 20 minutes for the last 13 years before the show starts, except for Joe? So I'm assuming that this is Joe. Hey, man, you're on the air.
I have to say, I was absolutely horrified and stunned by the footage of the death of Colonel Gaddafi. Yes, I do agree he deserved his fate, but I was outraged by the fact that they took off his wig and exposed his horrendous transplant to the world. This I really took offense to. And all I can say is, I'm sure the person who did his hair transplant is no longer practicing. You know what I mean?
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is excuse me. My name is
Would you like me to may I reiterate it?
My name is
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
Joe, look, I get it. I certainly get it. But you know what? I mean, even discussing the fact that, and so many people wrote me about this, that they pulled his hair off. It's like, I understand. I do. This is what I do for a living. I understand how hair loss affects all of our lives. But to even give a shit about that, it's unbelievable to me, especially in a situation like this. We're talking about the most ruthless dictator in recent history. Was captured and murdered by, I think, in my view, in a very deserving fashion.
I agree. I have no problem. I agree with that. But, as a hair loss sufferer, I was, appalled by, he was actually, he knew he was going to be executed, and he was physically trying to cover his head if the dissected the footage.
Well, I think, listen, of course, the guy's being, he's been hiding it for years. The guy's being pummeled to death. He's being bludgeoned to death, and he's trying to cover his head. It's wild.
And I think you know what I mean when I said that I'm sure the doctor is no longer practicing who did his hair transplant.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean.
I think he was probably executed.
It's very possible. But he definitely wasn't anyone in the IHRS or any retired members either. Let me get out the phone number, Joe. 888-659-3727. Great to have you back. It was great to hear you on Friday. These are my first two broadcasts. I did the free-for-all with the GFQ guys. And, of course, this is my first Bald Truth broadcast back in my own studio. And I have to tell you, it feels pretty good. I almost didn't make it today.
Oh, God.
I was here, but, I got a late start. And it was a real panic rush situation. The whole thing was doing my hair, which is, insane to begin with.
Yeah, I can understand
that. And now it's not like when I used to just do the show. If I wanted to just throw in a cap, and run to the studio, it was not a problem. Now everyone's watching me and scrutinizing me and trying to figure out what the hell's going on with my hair. So it's a lot of pressure.
I do have a lot of breaking news, but on a personal level, I'd like you to tell the audience, especially how your father's doing.
Well, I appreciate that. My father's doing much better, physically, but emotionally, he's not in a great place. Let's put it that way. And not to sound selfish, but it's very stressful for me. Obviously, I was there for a long time, and then, trying to kind of get back into life and dealing with that long distance and the phone calls and the craziness. It's not, it's not easy. But you know what? I'm not complaining. It is what it is, dude.
Well, this is also putting a physical and emotional toll on you, which I'm very concerned about.
Don't worry about me, dude. I'm fine.
Well,
I could take a lot, dude.
I can understand that.
I've been through a tremendous amount in my life, and this is child's play.
Well, I'm just glad to hear he's doing better. I'm glad to hear you're back at home.
Well, I appreciate it.
I was devastated I didn't see you in New York, but I'm hoping to see you next time you come.
Well, don't be devastated because I was extremely busy, and then when I was, trying to do something, I had a couple of minutes. Like I went to that, comedy show with, Canal's comedy show with GFQ. That was a last minute thing, and I went to the Zarian compound to do a show. And that was it. That was for a month. That's the only fun that I had.
Well, I would have let you have some. You would have had some fun with me. I would have made you laugh.
I know. You always make me laugh, Joe. So what's going on, man?
Well, I have some breaking news.
Oh, hold on. I didn't have time to put this into my 360, but let me see if I can get this to work from an email. Hold on. It's going to take a second. It's unbelievable.
The Bald Truth Report.
It just cut off. Supposed to say with Joe from Staten Island. Anyway, there you go, Joe.
Okay, first of all, on October 20th, Adirond's Corporation had a major press release. I'm sure you're aware of.
I am aware of it, but we saved that for you. So go ahead.
Well, the bottom is very, very, very encouraging. They've stated that they will complete phase 2 studies by mid-2012, which is a very, it's a blink of an eye away, as we know how fast time progresses. And at that point, we'll definitely know what the story is. And they're using, according to clinicaltrials.gov, they're using 10 separate protocols. This is really amazing. I don't know if you studied clinicaltrials.gov at all. I can't get into it.
I'll admit that I read it. I don't study it like you'd study it. Like
well,
I'll go over whatever I need to read for the day. And then I'll just go on to my next thing. I'm not sitting there studying it.
Well, they're using 10 different protocols.
Right.
Once phase 2 and 6 different forms of their J-Gami treatment. Once phase 2 is announced, within 6 months or 8 months, whatever, we're gonna know exactly what's going on.
Right.
And phase 3 is nothing. In my opinion, that would be be very quick. I mean, in my opinion, I don't even think they need FDA approval, but I'm not an expert on this.
Right.
It is.
So now that we have this information, what's your prediction?
My prediction is all these companies are getting nervous. Of course, the heat is on. You have Reposol, you have Histogen, you have Foligen, who's Folica, extremely, secretive, which is telling me they have something. The heat is on. That's the bottom line.
Right.
And as you know, Allergan will be releasing my teeth the next 12 months as an not over the counter, as a prescription drug is once a day. We know it grows hair. How much hair we don't know.
Right.
Certain people do know, but I'm not privy to that information. Even though some crazies on a message forum now think that I am. But
well, a lot of the guys in the message forum, for whatever reason, think that you're privy to information that the rest of the hair loss community isn't.
Like you.
Or like me. And to tell you the truth, I mean, we are privy to certain information, but as far as when these things are coming out and if certain technologies are actually, working as well as we hope, not necessarily. In the world of hair transplantation, I would say that I have a little bit more of a stronger hold, and or I should say, I'm privy to greater insight at an earlier stage than most people.
Well, we'll have to get to that too, if you have a minute. Certain doctors are spreading certain rumors about other doctors concerning ACell and hair transplantation, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Why don't you just spit it out, dude?
Well, Dr. Raspin is spreading rumors about Dr. Gary Hitzig.
Is it still active? Is he still writing this stuff?
No, it's on his blog.
Right.
Saying that he had breakfast with Dr. Hitzig, and Dr. Hitzig stated that A-cell does not work to the extent that he believes.
Well,
and,
I don't know if I told you.
My sources have told me this is not true.
All right. Well, my sources are Gary Hitzig, and I had the opportunity to speak to Gary Hitzig this week. I did an interview with him, which I have to get up online. And I asked him directly if, in fact, he had breakfast with Dr. Rasman. He said Dr. Rasman did sit at his table for a relatively brief period of time. And during the conversation, which seemed to be relatively heated, Gary Hitzig said to me that he never said that he retracts, he didn't retract any statement. He never said that A-cell did not grow plucked hairs, and he did not take a 100-degree turnaround in his stance like Bill Rasman is blogging. Now, I don't know what the situation is. That's what Gary Hitzig says to me. You guys will be able to hear it in your own words. According to him, according to Jerry Cooley, and according to some other guys who are really working with A-cell, it's working. It's doing a relatively, depending on, look, the bottom line is that it's not growing full heads of hair back. But they have had some success with hair plucking, and they've definitely had some really great success with, creating a better environment for hair transplantation to grow, or hair transplants to grow, and they seem to be getting some really good results with scarring. Also, during the interview, he did say that he's been working on basically trying to regenerate the donor sites with putting A-cell in after creating an FUE wound, or actually taking out the follicular unit graft through FUE. He claims he's getting some pretty good success. So that's exciting stuff too. So all that stuff's going to be out. Maybe I'll get it up online tomorrow. But to get back to Dr. Rasman, look, I don't know what his motivation is. I mean, to me, it seems that if this is really promising, that there's no reason why Bill Rasman wouldn't want to capitalize on it himself. According to Gary Hitzig, it's because he just doesn't know how to do it correctly. So I don't know what the situation is, Joe.
Well, my opinion, I know Gary Hitzig. I've met him several times.
Right.
I believe him. I don't think you make a statement like that. Dr. Rasman is known for making erroneous statements.
Look,
he's an naysayer. And any new thing that comes out, he tries to destroy.
Look, I have had interesting relationships with both guys over the years in my career.
I'm aware of that.
And Gary Hitzig is the only physician who's actually ever sued me, and he sued me early in my career, and I talk about that on the program all the time. And it's funny how things come full circle. And the bottom line is, when we speak. And I've always treated the guy with respect. Even, back in the day, I was just exposing what was known to be or thought to be the truth at the time. And, I had the only radio show on hair loss, so it was based out of New York. So, it's not my fault that he performed so many surgeries on guys that were unhappy back in the day, and these guys were calling the program. That's how it all started. And you were around, Joe, so you remember the whole situation.
Right, but that yesterday's history.
Well, it is, and I'm the type of guy where, to me, it's water under the bridge. I don't, you kind of have to just kind of push that aside, and my job is to get this information out to hair loss sufferers. My job is to, to get whatever I believe to be credible out to, the hair loss world, and I have to put my personal feelings aside. And yeah, it was a pain in the ass back in the day, but it is what it is.
I do believe. I have to, in my expert opinion, I believe Gary Hitzig. I don't believe Bill Rasman, because he's any new innovation he immediately dispatches.
Well, now you're putting yourself out there as an expert, Joe. Expert in what? Expert as in judging people. Expert in the knowing the history of the industry. What are you an expert in?
Well, I'm not an expert, but I'm an expert in hair loss. I'm saying. Gary Hitzig, Dr. Cooley, and even Dr. Cole will agree that A-cell will have some effect, on possibly the donor area we were going plugged hairs.
Well, it definitely seems to, and I would not say that if I didn't see certain things with my own eyes and actually speak to the guys that are really in the know. As far as what Bill Rassman is doing, I always say this. I say this on my maybe a couple of weeks ago when I was doing the show out of my dad's apartment. You know, he's blogging. He's putting out information that he believes to be accurate. He's also posting his opinion. So you can't take this as the gospel. Yes, he has a relatively popular blog. He's been blogging for a very long time. But people have to understand that the reason he blogs, it's not necessarily, well, at least in my view, for the love of blogging, just trying to get information out to the masses. I mean, it's part of his business. It's part of his how he draws business into his through his doors, and so you can kind of look at it from both sides. One is, why would he not want that business if it's something that was really working? Why would he not want to offer a cell in his practice? It's not going to cost him that much more money. He's going to be able to. It's not going to cost him any more money. He can probably charge more for it, and maybe in his mind he's giving people false hope. I don't know what it is. But I also have to look at what Jerry Cooley is saying and what Gary Hitzig is saying, and they're saying that, it's not the case, that A-cell does seem to be working, and Gary Hitzig is saying that whatever Bill Rassman wrote on his blog is inaccurate, at least as far as their conversation. So who knows? I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm just getting the information. You guys judge for yourselves.
I'm looking forward to your report on Dr. Gary Hitzig. I'm looking forward to that.
I will try to get it up online tomorrow on the Bald Truth, or maybe on the forum, Bald Truth Talk.
Is that a promise? Is that a promise?
Well, I said I would try, so I promise I will try.
Oh, well, okay. Now, if you don't mind, one final piece of information for our listeners. Are you familiar with the testing going on human trials with anti-stressin B? You've heard of that?
Yes.
What is your opinion on that, please?
Well, why don't you tell me about your opinion on it?
Well, if they're starting trials down in humans, it's worked in mice. I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
Well, what I always say is, there's a lot of great mouse, great examples and great successes in mice, and what's interesting, it usually doesn't really equate the same way in humans. It's just the way that it is. It doesn't mean that it's not going to benefit humans. It doesn't mean that once they start to do some trials, that you're not going to be able to. They won't be able to tweak things so that things work in a human model. But you'd be surprised at how many successes they have in rats and in mice that just never equate into a human model.
Well, in summary, I'm expecting, my prediction is by 2014 to 2015, you will have, I'm not saying someone will grow full out of hair, but you'll have a much more effective treatment than you have now. This is being recorded?
Yeah, it's being recorded. Your prediction, you're the Nostradamus of hair loss. God, I'm having trouble speaking tonight. So your prediction has been recorded. It's going to be archived. GFQ guys are going to be putting it out there everywhere. So it's there, Joe. And my prediction is pretty much the same thing. I definitely think that we are going to have significantly more effective treatments I'd say 2014 for sure.
And that goes by in a blink of an eye, as we know.
Oh my God! All right, dude. Listen, let me take another call.
I'm just very happy your father is well, man.
Well, I appreciate it. I wouldn't go as far as saying he's well, but he's a lot better than he was when he went in.
Well,
I appreciate it.
And I look forward to seeing you in New York, and dinner will be on me.
Dude, you don't have to pay for dinner. That's Andrew's job.
Well, I don't know if Andrew could afford it.
Are you kidding me, man? He took me out for like a $500 meal. This guy's rolling in it.
Okay, so we'll invite Andrew. He can pay the whole bill. You know how I eat and drink. You witnessed it.
No, that would be ugly. I don't think we should do that. He's got a wife. She's not going to like it.
Okay, thank you for your time, and I'm very happy to get back to California. And I'll be. You'll leave me potted up, please.
Yeah, you're potted up.
Thank you.
All right, hold on. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Oh my God, George.
Hey, George.
How are you, man?
I haven't been feeling great the past couple of days. A little too much stress going on. Woke up with kind of a dry throat and not feeling too great. I was all this temperature variation, and people were burning something. I'm in a suburban area of a city. Somebody was burning something, and put a bunch of smoke particulates in the air, and I don't know, it just hasn't felt great the last couple of days. But other than that,
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
No, it's just that's life, man. It's ups and downs, but it's good to hear. It's good to see you back in your digs.
Oh, thanks, man.
And it's good to hear my friend Joe. And I see Mr. Johnny and Mr. Hey Joe, I see Johnny and Andrew I got the Stickcam thing up, and I was looking at the chat thing here, and then all of a sudden Stickcam crashed on me.
Really?
And now I had to get it back up. Why is Suncast busting my balls the last few times I've come in here? He keeps saying things in the chat room.
That's his MO, dude. He busts my balls.
He keeps talking about how I saw last week he made a comment that I see him laughing now. Oh, good. So he can't read this. What does that mean? He was busting my balls a week ago. Something about we always knew George was insane. Something to that effect.
Yeah. Well,
and
listen.
Now,
when you basically become a public person, you become an on-air personality in your own right. So everyone's going to have an opinion. You got to realize that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's why I keep my face off of the freaking screen, and you got to maintain a little bit of anonymity so I can say what I want to without. It's like this new series I really like. I don't watch much of the Idiot Box, but there's a great new series called Person of Interest. I don't know if you've seen that or heard about it, where Jim Caviezel, the guy that played Jesus, is playing this ex-badass special forces or intelligence operative for the government, the kind of guy who, they got to rub out, people like Gaddafi and stuff like that. Anyway, he hooks up with some guy who's a computer geek who built some computer for the government, some system that would that they put cameras up all over the city. Basically, it was a huge computer system that monitored video and audio, everybody's phone calls, emails, voice recognition software from cameras on the street, looking for terrorists. And the whole crux of the series is the government, and looking for the terrorists, they found for finding people who were about to commit crimes or about to be the victim of crimes. But the government said ignore everything that's not terrorist related. So this guy couldn't live with himself. So he went out and hired Caviezel, who was this badass, to actually try to intervene before people had bad things happen to them. So I don't know, man. It's like Big Brother's out there, and
dude, you
can't have any damn privacy anymore.
You just dropped a little bit. Yeah, well, that's true.
You can't have privacy anymore. It's just.
Listen, dude, it is so scary how easy it is to find somebody now. I'll give you an example.
It really is.
I'll give you an example, a great example. Yvette found some kid's wallet out in our driveway. Now, apparently, some kids had some kids' parents were away, and they had some big party, and I don't know if these kids got drunk, and who knows what they're doing in my driveway. But it had the kid. He was in high school. Did not have a driver's license. Had an ID card from the local high school, but no other information. Had like $24 in the wallet. I'm like, just take the money and just give back the wallet. And she wouldn't do that. She's too honest. That's a joke, by the way, for all my detractors. I would not have taken the money. But so all she did was she went online. She Googled the guy's name. She found his Facebook page. And whatever other, incidentals are up there about him online. Found out what community, did not live in this community, but lived in another gated community. Found out where he lived, called the gate at that community, and, to make sure that he lived there, and said, the guy said, yeah, he does, and she dropped off the wallet at the guard gate. But it took like 2 minutes to find this guy.
Wow.
Through the internet.
Gosh. I mean,
and this is not a public person. This is not, me, it's like, I'm all over the place online. But this is just some kid, some random kid.
I don't know, man. I mean, it's just, I'm still, I guess because I'm too old, I'm still creeped out over this whole Facebook thing and how people go on there and put all this friggin' personal information about their lives. And the dumbest thing of all to me is how they tell people all day long, every day, what they're doing. So if somebody wanted to find them and kill them or come do a home invasion or carjacking or anything, it's like you're telling these friggin' criminals, here I am, come and get me, or I'm gone from the house, come and
I have a family member's wife who puts her entire life and her kids' life and pictures of her of my cousins in bathing suits online. I'm thinking,
Oh my
and these
God.
are these are cute girls. I mean, they're like I guess they're just in college now, so I mean they're of age. But the whole thing is still bizarre. You never know where those pictures are going. You never know who's using those pictures for what.
Last night, I've always had a thing where I've had a fascination with psychopaths and serial killers because they scare the crap out of me. And these people are walking around among us, and we don't know that they're there. They tend to be
that's right.
They appear to be perfectly normal people, and yet there's monsters walking among us who would eat your eyes.
I think about that all the time. I mean, just look at
Who would eat your children's eyes if they had a chance, like candy. And last night, 48 Hours, the CBS 48 Hours program, they always have good programs on there.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. They had one last night. Well, a new movie is just coming out called something like Texas Killing Fields or something like that, and it's about this stretch of interstate, I think it's I-45 or something between Houston and Galveston. Anyway, there's this terrible, god-awful wasteland there. And since the early 70s, there's been like 30-something young girls that have been abducted and sexually tortured and murdered, and their bodies dumped out there, man. And it's like the area, it's really godforsaken, swampy place full of friggin' oil refineries and shit like that. And man, this program was scary as hell. When you talk about your cousin putting those pretty little girls' pictures up, and you think about all the freaks out. Crap out of me, man.
Did you ever see that show I Survived? It's on the Bio channel.
Yeah.
I mean, shit really does happen. And it's funny because
it does.
I was actually asked for my address. There's the BBC's doing a documentary and is actually coming to the studio in a few weeks, and they asked me for my address online. The producer, through the internet, and I will not give her my address. Even though I checked the servers where the email is coming from, I will not put that out online. That's how paranoid I am. And you know what? I don't think that it's stupid.
It's not paranoid. It's being smart. It's protecting yourself and your family. And I subscribe to this train of thought of this woman that confronted some sheriff out in Arizona, and she said, "Sheriff, I see you're carrying your pistol. Are you expecting trouble?" And he says, "No, ma'am. If I expected trouble, I'd have my rifle."
Right.
And she said, "Why do you carry that big 45 pistol?" He said, "Because they don't make a 46."
But you know what? I mean, that's it in a nutshell, man.
That's it in a nutshell. If they want to come after me or mine, they better come ready. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I mean,
but you got to cover your ass, man. You got to protect yourself and your family, and particularly the women, all these women who are not trained to think like you and I think, and they don't know. I mean, God, I've had people back in my younger days when I was at the peak of my physical attractiveness. I got followed by gays through the mall. I had them follow me around in their cars. Now, they just may have been, I've had them follow me through grocery stores and run behind me and grab my butt in the grocery store and run and turn around and wink at me. It may have been innocuous, but you never know when somebody's just an innocuous pervert and when somebody is going to take you to their sex dungeon and torture you and cut your head off.
Yeah. So you were followed by the gays. You were followed by the gays.
Dude, they harassed me mercilessly through college and the first, and shortly thereafter. And it got to where I was so freaked out by it. I mean, I didn't have any doubts about my orientation. I told my parents about it, and they thought that crap was funny because I was a big, strong guy. I was in martial arts and been shooting guns all my life, and they knew that they knew that it was just. Some cast Andrew stopped following George. That guy has a wicked sense of humor, doesn't he?
He's pure evil, this dude.
I see that little evil grin on his face, man, up there in the window. He's got that Machiavellian grin on his face. But I don't know, man.
What is your orientation, George?
I am a purely straight heterosexual guy who has pretty much a taste for younger women. A lot younger than me. any attractive woman, but but particularly the ones that are a lot younger than me. I don't seem to find myself attracted to these broads, middle-aged broads my age, because most of them like a train wreck. But
that's a tough call, man. I think it definitely depends, on the woman, for me. But I was at a restaurant last night, and it was kind of like a mid-level type of a chain restaurant. Really good food, by the way. And, when you go to like one of those restaurants, there's, the bar scene is much different than the higher end restaurants. And, this bar scene is like a bunch of middle-aged women, kind of working class, out on a Saturday night, trying to have a good time, just kind of, pick up guys. But it's unbelievable how, the 45-year-old and the 50-year-olds, I mean, they get so loaded. And they're out, especially when they're single, and these are middle-aged women. I'm just watching them from the table. They're just getting so loaded and vulgar. And, and you think that that's just, relegated to, the younger chicks at the bars. It never changes. The only thing that changes is their attractiveness level.
Exactly. Well, when they're younger, their disgusting, crude, crass, tasteless, vulgar behavior, they get a pass on it when they're hot looking when they're young. When they get old, they just look like a bunch of worn-out, classless, uncultured old whores.
Yeah.
That's the sad part.
Which could be attractive after a couple of drinks, at least to me.
Well, I had the problem, to answer your question, I had the problem being followed for years with the gays, and then finally I confronted.
I love it, man. The gays, you're so funny, dude.
I finally had a talk one day with this bisexual guy. I ran into him at the gym that was a friend of my sister's. He was a dancer. And I got him off to the side.
Of course he was. It's so funny. Well, your stories are awesome, dude.
I was working out at the university where I attended. I was working out at the gym, and there was this black guy I worked out with all the time who was built like Mandingo. I mean, this guy had a body like George, what was it, Ken Norton in Mandingo. He had a body like that. But he had a real high squeaky voice like this, and he kept trying to get me to join the freaking cheerleader squad.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I'm on scholarship out here. If I had time to be fucking cheerleading, I'd be back in martial arts. I'm on scholarship. I'm in pre-med here. I don't have time for playing fucking cheerleader. I mean, the idea of picking up all the hot girls was appealing to me, but, getting to pick them up and throw them around in the air and stuff like that. But, and then he kept wanting to, every time we finished working out, we spot each other when we were lifting and stuff. Every time I got through working out, he was like, why don't we go out and get something to eat? And I was a dumbass, naive kid. I was like 22 at the time. I didn't know any better. Or 21. And then one day he comes walking in the gym with this friend of my sister's who I knew was a bisexual guy, dancer.
You okay? You okay, Joe?
Huh?
Joe sounds like he's disturbed. Are you okay, Joe?
Yeah. Yeah, fine.
Okay. Just checking.
Oh, well.
Great. Yeah.
So he comes walking in the gym, and I see him hanging out with the black guy that I worked out with, and I was like, oh crap. So I got to go off to the side, and I said, hey, is this guy I've been working out with, is he gay? And he says, of course he is. Of course he is. And I was like, oh man. And then I had to ask him, I got him aside, I said, look, you're a friend of my sister's, you know I'm straight. I know that you're bi, no big deal. Look, would you tell me what the hell I'm doing to attract all this gay attention? Because it's really, I don't know if I'm doing something subconsciously or I was really nearsighted. I was like, maybe I'm staring at people, don't realize it because I'm nearsighted. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but whatever it is, I got to stop it. And then he says, it's nothing you're doing, it's nothing you're saying, it's not your affectations, your way you dress or speak or whatever. He said, it's your eyes. I said, what about him? Am I staring at people? Because I was so nearsighted, I couldn't tell when I was staring at people. I was too vain.
It's the fact that you're walking around the gym in a jockstrap only. That
no. I just wore no, dude. I wore regular gym shorts and t-shirts and
gays like that, George. They like the.
Anyway, he told me I had really pretty eyes that needed to be on one of these gay magazine covers, and I was like, that's it. I don't want to hear any more. So I said, well, there's really nothing I can do about my eyes, unless I wear sunglasses or something. So from that point forward, I just developed this thing. Whenever I would see one of these guys in public, and he looked like he was like giving me the look, I just give him the look like I was going to eviscerate him if he came any closer, and that ended it. It was over.
I never had a problem with it. I mean, if there was a gay, I just took it from where it came. Gay guy said, thought I was hot. I'm like, thank you, and that's it. I never thought like
one thing if they tell you that, dude. It's another thing if they follow you through the mall. If they get in their cars and follow you,
But I had a
if
guy,
they grab your ass in the grocery
and
store.
these are crazy stories. But I was on a New York City bus going across town. I was probably about 14 years old, and there's this really creepy guy staring at me through this crowded bus. And then the bus, as we're going across town, the bus starts to thin out, and he's still staring at me, and really like a weird looking guy, And then the bus thins out even more, and there's nobody between me and this guy, and he's sitting there rubbing himself.
Oh no!
All right.
Oh no!
So shit happens, dude. Deal with it. It has nothing to do with you.
It's flattering.
Yeah.
Maybe for you, Joe.
Well, as a child, it was scary, but as an adult, if you're being followed home by anybody, that's not threatening your life, it's flattering. So,
The only time I got scared, the only time it really scared me is that right after college, I was out one time looking for a temporary job, and I was driving around my city, and that's before the days of cell phones. This was 1984. And I pulled up in this parking. I had a job application, and they asked some question. It sounded like a trick question, so I was going to pull off in this strip shopping center to go up to the payphone to call my dad to ask him how I should answer this rather tricky question. So I get out of my car, and as I'm walking, all the cars pull up to the edge of the front of this strip shopping center, and there's some redneck guy in a pickup truck, and his hair greasy looking. And I had to walk right by him, and he looked at me, and he stared at me. He said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I looked at him and I said, "Fine, man. How about you?" And I just kept right on going. And I walked up to the payphone against the building, and this guy just stood there looking. He got in his truck and just sat there staring at me. And his truck was like, not very far from the payphone. He sat there staring at me, staring at me, staring at me. And I told my dad, I said, "I think there's some escapee from Deliverance, movie that's over here staring at me." And my dad's like, F him, forget it. And I got in my car, and I pulled out to the edge of the parking lot. It was like a line of cars, and I got out of the parking lot. This guy waited, Spence, until I got to the edge of the parking lot. He pulled his truck in behind me where I was in this line of cars and couldn't move right or left. And then I was like, oh, my God. And then I pulled out, and the son of a bitch started following me around the city. And I thought, there's no effing way I'm going home to let this guy see where I live.
Right.
So I had to start.
That's how I felt when I went out with Joe the first time. When Joe took me out the first time, that's how I felt.
I had to do donuts. I had to do roundabouts through the city, and finally lost this son of a bitch. And and right after that is when I started carrying a gun. And I thought,
Now, did you decide to carry a gun because you wanted to ward off the gays? Is that why you decided to carry the gun initially?
No, well, no. I'd been thinking about it for a while, and I was finally of the age where I could carry legally, and there was nothing that the cops could do about it. And so that's when I started carrying for self-protection. And then shortly after that, I got a concealed carry permit, which is unconstitutional. If you don't have it, the asshole cops will screw with you. So anyway, that's who's this punk Punketa, Punk Ethica. Who the hell is this person on the chat that's busted my balls about carrying a gun?
She's a woman that enjoys the Bald Truth and some of the other GFQ programs.
She's laughing out loud. Yeah, yes, sir, Mr. Ex-Policeman. By the way, Joe, my late grandfather was a cop here in my city in Mobile, and back in the 30s when things were really, really rough. Heard a lot of police stories growing up, Joe. Some really psycho.
I don't mean to divert, but this is the Hell Lost show, isn't it?
Oh, there's Joe chastising us again for getting off topic.
Well, listen, guys, you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to take a break. Phone number is 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. Give us a call. Joe is right. It is the Hair Loss Show. So if you have any questions or concerns about your hair loss, or if you just need to vent, remember this is your safe place to get completely objective information about everything and anything hair loss. So please feel free to give us a call. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. We'll be right back after these messages.
the ringmaster of the hair loss circus.
I got this great patch in the middle of my head and stuff, right? And that might be the first signs, I don't know. But, I'm not bald or, that's the least of my worries. But still, I kind of like your advocacy. I like your troubleshooting. I like the way that you put things, the truth.
Spencer David Kobren.
Hey guys, welcome back. Phone number is 888-659-3727. We're live from Los Angeles, coast to coast, worldwide on the internet. A lot of you guys are probably viewing the broadcast through gfqlive.tv, stickam.com, ustream.tv and .com, Justin TV. You're listening on iTunes Radio and Stitcher Radio. Welcome to the broadcast. Phone number 888-659-3727. This is The Bald Show. That's right. As crazy as it sounds, it's pretty crazy. I've been doing this for a long time, almost 14 years. At some point or another in these 14 years, I've been doing this program, whether it was live on terrestrial radio, live on satellite radio, live on radio and the internet, or just on the internet. We've been here, and it's pretty insane that the industry hasn't changed all that much. It's better. It's evolved. There's no doubt about it. We've made some tremendous strides and changes. But it's still, for the most part, a scam industry, in my view, in my opinion. $3.5 billion a year spent on hair loss products and treatment, and most of them don't work. So please be careful, guys. If you're considering buying any product or service to treat your hair loss, check with us, check with the American Hair Loss Association. Do your due diligence before you waste your precious time and your precious money. And if you're considering surgery, oh my God, please be careful. So many guys, there are guys that are going to be hacked tomorrow. There are guys that figured out a way to finance a hair transplant, but didn't do their research. And maybe, went to somebody after they saw a commercial on television or an infomercial or an ad in the back of a magazine or on the sport, in the sports section of a newspaper. And they're very excited. They're going to get their hair back. They're going to have this cutting edge technology that they read about in this guy's brochure, whoever this, unknown doctor is. And what they don't know is that tomorrow morning is going to change the rest of their lives. And sadly, not for the better. It's the way it is. They're taking 2 weeks off of work. They're all prepared. They're excited. They're finally going to change their life. And they have no idea they're going to be fucked up. Excuse my French. So please do your due diligence. Do your homework. I founded an organization about 10 years ago. It's called the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. And the reason I founded the organization is because it was in my view, the industry was such a cesspool that it was really, you couldn't make heads or tails of it. You didn't know what to do, where to turn for objective information, to look for really good doctors. So we created the IHRS, or I did. I actually created the first recommended list of doctors in my first book, The Bald Truth, which was unheard of at the time. Blasphemy. I was hated for doing that, but I did it anyway. But what's wild about this is that we get applicants, doctors applying every week, and we still have less than 60 doctors. And these doctors pay me an annual screening fee to be a part of it once they're accepted. I would love to accept more checks. Love to. I would love to just take even half the applicants that have taken the time to apply to the IHRS. And we'd be making millions of dollars more a year. But I can't do it. And the reason I can't do it is, sadly, as great as things have been in the industry and the way things have turned around and the fact there's great work being done, it's still only being done by a handful of doctors. So forget about the bullshit that you see in the media. Forget about, if someone happens to get, the opportunity to do some local news. Forget about whether or not they have some new cutting edge device in their practice claiming to, be the end all be all when it comes to surgical hair restoration. Do your due diligence. Contact the American Hair Loss Association. Check out the IHRS at ihrs.org and really do your homework. You know what? A great place to do your homework is on our message forum, which is baldtruthtalk.com. Talk to other patients. And there's patients that have gone to good doctors that are not necessarily happy either. You have to be prepared if you're going to have surgery for the worst possible scenario. Understand that this is cosmetic surgery. Things can go wrong, even in the best hands. Educate yourself. Empower yourself before you make that decision. And if you have surgery scheduled tomorrow morning with a doctor that you don't recognize as being a part of what we do, contact us. We'll tell you the truth. We'll let you guys know whether or not, there are some good doctors out there that are not part of what we do. In my view, not many. But, just be careful out there. 888-659-3727. I'm going to pot you guys up. Joe, that's you.
Yes,
yeah, go ahead.
Just talk about hair transplants. I've been, studying a lot of hair transplant pictures. I need your opinion on something, if you don't mind.
I'll do my best.
I've noticed a lot of people, like cats who are like NORD 3s, NORD 4s. A lot of doctors have been taking 4,000 and 5,000 grafts, which is pretty much a whole donor area, placing it in the front. The guy looks great, no doubt about it. But what happens when if this person progresses to NORD 5, 6, and 7? There's no donor area left.
Well, I mean, there's a school of thought where people, a lot of doctors believe that the average donor area is around, anywhere between 7,000 and 9,000 grafts.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes even higher. Now, with the advent of, follicular unit extraction, if you get a few good strips in, and, it is still possible to cherry pick maybe another few hundred to 1,000 grafts, even after you've been stripped out. So you can get, if you are a good candidate for surgery, a relatively full-looking head of hair. And I think dense packing the front in the hairline, the mid-anterior scalp is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that it really does give the person the look that they need to move forward with life. A lot of guys just need a better framing of their face, and they understand that they're always going to have a bald spot. And they're fine with that. And when they look at themselves in the mirror, when they take a picture, they feel like themselves again. And they're not quite as concerned about having a bald, scalp on top, a bald crown.
I see. Thank you, Peter. And there's one more comment I want to make. Like you said, we've been doing this, you've been doing this for 14 years. As you know, I've been with you from the beginning. I was your first caller.
Yes.
But I have to say, for the first time, things have really changed in the fact that we have real companies now coming, fairly close to a viable solution. We didn't have this years ago.
No,
right?
We had shit years ago. That's what we had.
We had the elusive Dr. Go. He's always been with us.
Yeah, Dr. Go's been with us forever. And you know what? It's funny because there's still people are still pinning so much hope on Dr. Go. It's amazing to me. Listen, I don't really. My opinion is. Whatever he's doing, I don't know if, in fact, it's working as he claims. He has not been able to prove that to me. But, we had a nice interview. I think that if people really did take the time to view the interview and listen to it, they might realize that things may not be what they appear or what Dr. Go is claiming. Now, again, it's just my opinion. I'm hoping for the best. I hope that what Dr. Go is claiming now, that he's actually able to regrow donor areas. I hope that's true. I hope it's working. I hope it's working consistently.
If it is true, I think other physicians would embrace it. Just imagine they'd love to do 30,000 grafts on a patient.
They absolutely would embrace it. They would embrace it in a New York minute. it gives them an unlimited amount. I mean, they make so much more money from every patient that walk through their door. So of course they would embrace it. If this is something that's really happening, then I think at this point we would know a little bit more about it. But again, that's just my opinion. We've been disappointed for many years by Dr. Go, but his name is kept alive. His mystique is kept alive online because there's just a lot of desperate hair loss sufferers out there that are really looking for any hope, and I understand that.
There's this guy called Stevie D on a certain message forum who's obsessed with Dr. Go. He's one of his advocates.
Yes, there are a few guys, and that's fine. You know what? I want these guys. I would love for this to be possible. I really would. But at this point, Dr. Go has not proven that to me. And, they always talk about how, there was some major issues where a lot of European doctors were coming up against Dr. Go because they were concerned about the claims that he was making in his advertising about hair multiplication, stuff like that. And then a lot of these doctors ended up retracting their commentary. Now, in my view, the reason they retracted their commentary and the reason why they sent out, these guys basically signed some sort of a release form saying that they were, potentially incorrect, or they're retracting what they said against Dr. Go, is because there was, no one wants to get sued. No one wants to have to deal with being sued. It's a big pain in the ass. So it wasn't important for them, enough for them to continue to take a stance against Dr. Go in Europe. I don't know what the truth is. All I know is that he has not proved to me that he's able to multiply the donor area.
Because I have not seen him, produce a NOAA 7 with a full head of hair.
This is the problem. He's only able to do small sessions. It would take years, even if he is reproducing the donor area, so you can reuse that area. It would take years for someone to actually undergo his process and have a decent-looking hair transplant. Maybe 5 years, in my opinion.
But he's been claiming this for the last 10 years. Shouldn't he have some patience by now to show us?
I don't know. It is what it is, man. That's the beauty of the internet, and it's the beauty of people's hopes. And sadly, there's a lot of because people are pinning their hopes on certain technologies and on certain doctors that may not that I should say that have disappointed us in the past. Because these people are still out there, these doctors were able to continue to make a living. And they're being promoted via the internet for free, basically, by, posters on these forums who are zealots, in my opinion.
Yeah, they are very aggressive zealots of that.
But listen, I'll be the first to eat my hat if Dr. Go's technology and his if he has the ability to regenerate donor areas the way that he claims. I would love it, man. I would promote it from the rafters. I would tell every doctor, every IHS member will be doing it for sure.
As you know, he's charged $100,000 fee to be training this. I mean,
I think it's $50,000, isn't it?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I think it was actually 100,000 euros, which translates to 50,000 euros, or whatever. It's not important. You're right. You're always right.
No, I don't care if I'm right.
No, you're always right. But the point is that doctors would love this. Like I just said, why wouldn't they want this? They would quadruple their business. You give a man 30,000 grafts.
That's right.
$100,000, whatever.
Absolutely.
You have a really full head of hair. Not that much, donor available.
Well, it is what it is. We know what the reality of the situation is. And believe me, if I knew that for sure that Dr. Go was able to accomplish what he claims, I would just suggest to every doctor, every IHS member to, pay the $50,000, learn this technique. You're going to get the money back in spades. And I think part of it is, correct me if I'm wrong, he also wants to, provide the physicians with a patented tool that he uses to extract the grafts and to kind of basically split those grafts or transect or split the grafts in half while they're being extracted, and some other type of patented device besides that you need to do his method. So he'd be making money the entire time, along the way with every procedure performed. So listen, if it's something that worked, I would tell every doctor to do it. I would say, listen, I would suggest that you go to the Netherlands, check out go to one of his, whatever it is, his seminars or whatever he calls training sessions. Pay the money. It's going to be well worth it, and you're going to be benefiting a lot of patients. And in the long run, your pocketbook. At this point, I don't think that's the case.
If it was the case, you could make up the training fee on one patient. Really?
Oh, absolutely. $50,000 is nothing for a hair transplant surgeon. You have to understand how much money there is to be made in this business. It's insane. If you are a busy if you have a busy practice, if you're doing one surgery a day, 5 days a week, just one surgery a day, 5 days a week, you can profit depending on how much you're charging per graft, depending on the procedure. A doctor could easily make $50,000 a week.
A week?
A week.
Oh, wow.
Now that's a busy practice charging a decent amount per graft. There are some doctors that charge per case. There are some doctors that are charging $3 or $4 per graft, so they're not going to be making that kind of money. But there are also doctors that are charging $9 a graft. So, for every 1,000 grafts, they're bringing in $9,000. You do 2,000 grafts, you're talking about $18,000 a procedure. I don't care how much rent you're paying and how much you're paying your staff. You're still going to have to bring home at least half of that.
But if Gold's procedure was true, they would have to decrease the amount they charge for graft, because you couldn't charge 30,000 grafts for a really bold person would need $8 a graft. That's $250,000. I don't think people would be paying that.
Well, a lot of people would.
Some would, but the average person.
Yeah, but the average person may not. But there's so many people that can afford that it'll keep these doctors in business for years.
I guess. Well, that's a good point.
So let's take another call, Joe.
Thank you, Spencer.
You're quite welcome. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Spencer, how you doing? Good to see that things are getting back to normal.
Oh, hey, Johnny. How's it going, man?
Hey,
good.
John.
Hey, Joe, my hair loss brother from another mother. How you doing?
Visible as usual, my friend. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad things haven't changed. George, it's good to hear from you, too. I don't know if he's
George hung up.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. I don't think he could take the chat room.
Oh.
I think it gets to him.
They're just yanking his chain.
I know. But he can't take it. I don't know why. I don't know why he can't take. He can't take it. He can't take it. He can't take the gays, and he can't take people busting his balls.
The rednecks and the gays.
Yeah.
So it's good to see you're back.
Thank you, man.
I'm glad your dad's getting maybe not back to normal, but at least having a normal life.
Well, he's getting back to normal. He's certainly getting back to normal. That's the problem.
He's calling you constantly.
Oh, well, no, it's just a situation. When I am speaking to him, it's a very difficult situation. So he's back as far as the part of his personality that just constantly bitches and moans and all that stuff.
That's the dentine and the Schlitz.
That's right.
But it's good to see that things are getting back to normal, though.
No, I appreciate it.
I know you were.
We'll see how long it lasts.
Well, hey, you know what? Every day, every single day that you have is a good day. So
absolutely,
just hang in there. And I tell you what, Yvette's a good gal, man, for looking that kid up and returning his wallet. That's a good person.
She is. She's a very good person. I mean, listen, I probably would have just brought it over to our guard gate and let them deal with it, and just kind of turned it in. But she definitely went to full 9. But she's a real investigator. You cannot screw with this girl. I could never cheat on Yvette. She would find out in a second.
And not get away with it, right?
No, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't get away with it, I should say.
So, this hair transplant, or this new procedure you were just talking about a moment or two ago, in theory, it would almost be to a point where it's almost unaffordable to the average person. If, like Joe said, $250,000, man, that's a lot of money. I mean, you're talking about people in Hollywood that would the only ones be able to afford something like that.
Yeah. You're right about that.
Is this something that's gonna, or is this just you know? Pie in the sky.
Well, right now, I mean, this Dr. Kongo has been claiming this for a long time. It's basically, it's kind of like a partial follicular unit extraction. And what he does is he goes in with a device that he's patented, and he removes a portion of the hair follicle as opposed to the entire hair follicle. And he leaves some of the hair follicle behind, and that hair is supposed to regenerate an entire follicle in the donor area, so you would have unlimited donor. And then that the implanted hair, even though it's even though it's like a partial graft, is supposed to take on the full graft characteristics once it is implanted into the scalp. Truth of the matter is, he's been doing this for a long time, and I have yet to see a definitive study where he can say, "Hey, listen, we studied these many people." And it was blinded, no placebo, but some sort of a real statistical analysis done by maybe an outside resource, and this is what we've come up with. Right now, that's not the case. Right now, it's he's selling the technology, he's selling the idea and the technology to consumers who are going to him to have these hair transplants. And we don't really know for sure if, in fact, the donor area is regrowing. And he's doing relatively small sessions that are basically, I don't think he won't go back into the same area until a year. So, if, in fact, he is recreating these donor areas, it's going to take 10 years for someone to get a decent head of hair. I think he's doing the most 2,000 grafts per case. It may even be less now. I'm not sure.
But you haven't seen any real results in terms of anything significant.
I have not, and I haven't seen any really great hair transplants at this point coming out of his clinic. Now, they're fine. They're your average hair transplant, but nothing spectacular and nothing that I'm able to say, you know what, this is for real. He's not only performing great hair transplants, but now he's claiming that he's able to recreate or regrow the donor area. That's basically the Holy Grail. And if I was able to see this, I would go out there and say, hey, docs, you got to do this technique. Pay whatever this guy wants you to pay to learn it. It's going to be well worth it, and it's going to help a lot of people, and you guys are going to make so much money. At this point, I can't say that. So to answer your question, is it pie in the sky? I don't know if it's true. I don't know if Dr. Go is selling us a bill of goods or not. I hope that he's not. I hope that what he's claiming is true.
It sounds like it's a little bit more intense than something like gay cell or, a different technique.
Well, basically all this is follicular unit extraction, and right. He's basically splitting a follicle using like a half of or partial unit extraction. That's what he calls it. And he leaves a piece of the hair follicle on the back of the scalp and hopes for the best.
It's interesting.
So we'll see.
I just, it's interesting just to say the least. I mean, I've never heard of anything like that, but.
Well, if you go on Bald Truth Talk, I think I just lost you, Johnny.
I'm back.
Oh. If you go on Bald Truth Talk, I actually did an interview with him a few months ago, and you can see it there. I don't know if it's on Bald Truth Talk or thebaldtruth.com. And it was an interesting interview. It didn't really enlighten me as far as he was unable, in my eyes, to really prove that this technique is working.
Well, I mean, for like Joe said, someone that's like a Norwood 6 or 7, this would, if hypothetically it would work, it would be something that would definitely be a major breakthrough. Like you said, you would think you'd have doctors, knocking down his door trying to learn the technique.
Right.
But it's...
well, what he claims is you kind of have to think of extracting these grafts kind of like, taking the cuttings from a plant. You know how like horticulturists will genetically duplicate plants by taking, pieces of that plant and then replanting it, and then it kind of basically clones itself. And that's what he's claiming he can do with hair follicles using this technique.
So he doesn't take the whole follicle out of the back of the head. He
Right.
just splits it while it's inside your head.
Basically, it's a vertical
pulls it.
split, and then pulls out a portion of it, and then implants that and leaves the rest.
Is it like FUE?
It is basically FUE. It's like a partial unit extraction.
Okay, because part of the problem that I've read about with FUE is the transection of other grafts as they're trying to, remove, a particular graft. And he's saying, what I'm understanding is he can go in and split the graft.
Yeah, what he's saying is if you transect it correctly, you're not lopping off the bulb or tearing it or causing torsion or whatever it is. If you cut it correctly using his device, then you can leave a viable portion in the scalp and use a viable portion to implant into the scalp. That's his theory, and that's what he claims is he's been studying and he's been effectively doing and performing in his practice.
Sounds very labor intensive.
Well, it's not going to be much more labor intensive than traditional hand cranked FUE. You have a specific device. If you know what you're going for, you're able to cut that graft in half inside the scalp. With this particular device, it's just probably some sort of a modified punch. So it'd basically be just like FUE, except he's leaving a portion of the graft in the scalp. Now, in theory, it sounds great. In practice, I don't know if it's happening. So, only time will tell.
It's just hard for me to get wrap your mind around it when you hear traditional FUE where they're going in with the punch to remove a graft, and yet there's possibility of damage around where you're trying to remove that graft.
Well, but there's a lot of guys now that are doing FUE really well, and there's a lot of new devices out there. One device that I actually am very interested in even taking a closer look than I have is the ARTIST system, which is the Restoration Robotics ARTIST robot, hair transplant robot. We're going to be doing a live surgery, I think, on the 28th, I think Friday.
What time, Spencer?
It'll be, I think, 12 noon Eastern. So, you guys can call in during the surgery with Dr. James Harris, and his patient has been kind enough to allow us to bring our cameras in there and, go live. And
12 noon your time?
12 noon your time.
Oh, our Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time. And it's going to be really interesting to see. I've seen videos of the device in action. I've seen... and spoken to the doctors that tested during the clinical trials with this device. I've spoken to Dr. Harris at length about, Dr. Harris actually created something called the SAFE system, which actually uses a dull punch in follicular unit transplantation and follicular unit extraction as opposed to a sharp punch. And they incorporated his SAFE system into this Restoration Robotics ARTIST system. So that's really, this technology is partially James Harris's, which is pretty awesome. And Jim has been around for a long time. And he's getting about a 91% non-transection rate, meaning he's getting 91% of the grafts are coming out completely clean with this robot, which is a pretty good number, because even with conventional follicular unit transplantation, you're going to transect maybe 5% of the grafts, maybe even more, depending on how meticulous the doctor is with taking out the donor area. Just taking out that area alone, you can transect a lot of hairs.
Is this more efficient and faster too?
Well, it's more efficient. It's less labor intensive, obviously, for the physician. But what's great about it is, at least according to Restoration Robotics and the doctors that I've spoken with, it could really judge, and you can really cherry pick the grafts much easier. It seems to be more effective as far as just getting in there and finding that right angle. FUE is basically a blind procedure, and this gives the doctor the ability to look at the field, the donor field, in a much larger, very magnified way on a computer monitor, and kind of cherry pick and choose through using the computer what grafts they want to use in the hair transplant, and then the computer just does its thing.
Well, how many in a traditional FUE can a doctor get? I mean, what are they averaging right now?
It depends. Most of the guys now are using some sort of motorized device, whether it's the NeoGraft, which is being used by Alan Bauman and a couple of other guys. It's the Harris Safe System, Feller's handheld device. Dr. John Cole has an FUE device that is supposed to be pretty good. And I think that they're getting, 2,000 graft cases now in a day, which is, it's pretty amazing. 1,500 grafts in a day, 2,000 grafts in a day. So it's happening. I mean, they're on par with traditional hair transplants now.
Now, this machine that you're talking about, what is it averaging? Do you know?
I don't know the exact thing. Let me take a look right now. I don't know. I did speak to Jim about that, but I don't know. I forgot what it's averaging. But I know that, like Sarah Wasserbauer said, she did I think her best case was between 1,500 and 1,800 grafts, and she probably could have done more. So it does take time to set up, and there's some issues. You definitely need 2 or 3 people to run the device, and but I'm just trying to see if I can find anything online that gives me.
But unlike a strip, you could do that FUE the next day if you wanted to on a different side of the scalp.
Yes, absolutely.
So I mean, it's not as hard on the patient in terms of once you do a strip, you've cut those strip up. You've got to wait and let it heal for 6 months to a year.
Absolutely.
Right.
Listen, healing time with FUE is definitely shorter. It's a lot less traumatic for the patient, even though traditional hair transplant, a good, FUT, if it's done well, I mean, they're still cutting a piece of tissue out of your scalp and having the suture closed. But if it's done well, I mean, if you're a good healer, it may be sore for a few days, maybe a little swelling, and then that's it. Some itching, you've got to wait 10 days to get the stitches out or the staples out. But it's surgery. It's cosmetic surgery. Now, FUE is surgery as well. You're scoring the scalp, you're scoring the skin, so you're cutting, but it's a different healing process. They're very minute, 1 millimeter or less than 1 millimeter punches in the back of your scalp that basically heal without any stitches. So, there's something to be said about that. But there's also something to be said, in my view, if you're going to try to get your hair back, in my view, the best way to go about it is still probably a hybrid of a traditional strip procedure and FUE.
Now, with the FUE, Spencer, do they still have to have the technicians to trim the grafts, or?
Well, the technicians aren't trimming the grafts. I mean, there are some doctors that at one point during the evolution of FUE would have the grafts trimmed a little bit after they were extracted. Now they're just taking out. There's no need to trim any of the fat or any of the tissue off those grafts because they're extracted, intact and ready to be implanted. So the techs are really just used to implant the grafts.
Okay, so that basically it cuts some of the costs as far as having more people in the OR.
Well, they cut for those are the least. That's really the least expensive part of, I think, of hair transplant surgery. It's not that much cost cutting. I mean, FUE in general is still more labor intensive. They still charge more per graft, so it's going to be more expensive procedure. Maybe those costs will get down once it becomes better automated or more automated. I think
it sounds like this machine may cut down on some of the cost as far as being more efficient in harvesting more grafts.
Well, look, the NeoGraft in the right hands, I think, is a good device. I think the NeoGraft in the right hands, if it's a skilled person extracting the grafts, you're going to get good, clean, viable, robust grafts out of the NeoGraft with less. It's going to be less labor intensive for the physician or for the user. And sadly, a lot of these NeoGraft procedures are being performed by technicians only, from what I understand. So that's another issue that I have. I mean, at least with restoration robotics, it's going to be dependent on a physician to run the device, and that's the way they want to market their product, and that's the way right now it's being sold to the hair transplant world. So, go ahead.
With the FUE in the, let's say, A-cell or what they were using for the donor graft, I've seen where a lot of patients had the FUE, and it looked like they've been shot in the back with a shotgun because of the different. Now, with A-cell, have they tried to use that to inject into those little recipient areas?
Well, it's a good question. I just had an interview with Dr. Gary Hitzig, and he created a gel that he's able to basically use with, like he basically mixes the A-cell and it's almost like a Vaseline type of thing, where he's able to suspend the A-cell particles in this gel, and he's been spreading it on the donor areas after FUE. He's claiming that the hair and the skin is regenerating.
That's interesting.
So that would actually, I think, eclipse what Go is trying to do, because they would be able to just go in there straight, do FUE, maybe using a device like the Artis or another device like the Cole system or Safe system, whatever, and then regrow the donor area with the use of A-cell. That, to me, would be, as far as surgical hair restoration, that would be the holy grail.
So you just apply that gel or topical solution one time or several times?
Well, I'm not exactly sure.
Right.
He was, I'm not going to say he was vague, but you guys will hear the interview for yourself. But it sounds exciting, and I'm hoping that what he's telling me is accurate. Because if he's able to do this, and if they're able to prove this, then it's going to change everything. Just like all these guys who have been, pinning their hopes on Co and Go, this to me seems to be a real possibility, and probably even a more viable solution than going in there and hoping that you're transecting or splitting those grafts just the right way. So, that the portion that you leave in is actually going to regrow hair. If you can do it with a solution like this with A-cell, then that would be incredible. Your body's basically just regenerating.
You can have in the donor area. If you have a patient with a severely depleted donor area, theoretically this stuff can be applied, and you could keep going back for surgery.
Theoretically, but we also don't know what's going to happen to that area. Is it going to be growing as robustly as your original donor? When that new donor that's been regenerated is extracted and then implanted, is it going to grow as well in the recipient area as the original donor area? Do you know what I'm saying? Is it going to kind of be like when you're duplicating videotapes? Is it going to get weaker and weaker? You're going to lose generations. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Theoretically, it would be an incredible option. Theoretically, it would be the holy grail for surgery, for surgical hair restoration. You just basically, guys would have to go in for multiple procedures. It would all be follicular unit extraction. And you would still have to go to a skilled surgeon with a great staff, because the bottom line is, if the artistry is not there, it doesn't matter how many grafts you have. If you have a shitty hair transplant, you're just going to have a shitty hair transplant with more grafts.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's the surgeon being the artist and placing those grafts to make it look as natural as possible.
And it's the staff, the surgeon and the techs. The techs have to be top notch. You can't, hire these girls from Bryman and hope for the best. These girls really have to be, and these guys have to be really well trained. It has to be a well honed team for a hair transplant to come out well. And people just don't understand that. They just kind of, they look at the doctor's credentials and they hope for the best. When you go in for a consult, you ask the doctor, how long have you been working with your staff? Are the girls or the guys that are going to be working on my head, have they been working with you for a while? Who else have they worked for? How long have they been performing hair transplants? Because that's what they're doing. They may not be doing the surgery side of things, but in some cases now with the NeoGraft, there are doctors claims that there are techs out there that are doing all of the work. And there's a couple of companies that basically are going around on a per diem basis to doctors' offices who've bought the NeoGraft and doing allegedly doing the entire procedure for the physician. The physician is just basically in the room. But in a traditional sense, the technician really has to know what they're doing. And frankly, a doctor is only as good as his worst technician, as his weakest technician.
Well, Spencer, I find it very interesting you use the word surgical Holy Grail. I find that very interesting because something like Replicel, where you took 20 to 25 hairs, and theoretically we would be able to give a person a full head of hair, would not be considered surgery. Am I correct in that?
You are correct in that. Basically, that would be considered or likened to a cellular hair transplant. So, they would only have to cut you once, hopefully, and it would be a small biopsy, and then replicate those cells and then inject them into your scalp, and then you'll grow hair. That's the hope.
Well, the injections, Spencer, I don't know if you can answer this, but how many injections would you have to have? Let's say a Norwood 5. I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the fact that.
Well, right now,
theoretically,
according to the company, and you can hear the interview on thebaldtruth.com. According to the company, each injection is growing an area of hair that is relatively small. So you would have to have multiple, probably hundreds of injections
in one sitting
to grow. Yeah, absolutely. But big deal.
Right, because you're getting if you have 5,000,
they numb your scalp and they go to work.
Right. Well, if you're going for the traditional hair transplant, if you're getting 3,000, you're going to have 3,000 little.
Well, you're also getting first. You get the anesthetic, that injection, and then you're getting your head, basically, tissue removed from your scalp sutured, and then you're getting thousands of, recipient sites basically cut into your head.
Does it take long for me to refine and culture this serum that they use, or I'm calling it a serum that they inject? Does it take days for it to?
From what I understand, it takes longer than days. But from what I understand, I think you can get it within just a couple of weeks. So you go in there, you get it done, you come back to your doctor's office, your cells are sent back from the lab, and you're good to go.
Do they remove the hair that you use using strip, or is it done with FUE? Or
basically, they just take a biopsy of your scalp, like an FUE, and that's how they do it. But you can go to Replicel.com, and you can go to YouTube and check out the Replicel video. We've played it on the program. There's a lot of information on Bald Truth Talk about it. There's a whole thread about Replicel, and you could also listen to my interview with David Hall, who's the CEO of the company. And actually, I have to do a follow-up with him, which I promised you guys. So maybe I'll get that done this week.
The most miraculous thing about Replicel is even a baldness patient could be helped, because everyone's going to have at least 20 or 25 hairs left, even the worst case scenario, unless he has alopecia totalis.
Well, I don't think that it's going to work well for any type of immune disorder, any type of immune-based or immune suppressant type of hair loss, because the hair's just going to fall out.
I'm talking about classical male pattern baldness.
It's going to work for people with classic male pattern baldness. It's going to work for people who have had, traction alopecia, burn victims. People have had different type of mechanical hair loss, stuff like that. You there, Joe?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
It's they seem, I don't know, they seem very confident in Replicel. I'm sure there's more to this story than meets the eye.
Well, we'll find out. I'm going to be interviewing them again. We're going to have a second part to the initial interview. There's a lot of questions that guys have been asking on the message forum. By the way, guys, if you want to check out more about Replicel, you can go to baldtruthtalk.com. You can hear my interview. You can read a tremendous thread. I don't even know how many. I had to take a look. I mean, thousands and thousands of people have read this thing. It's insane. I mean, I looked at the number the other day. Let me see if I could find it. It's just absolutely crazy how many people go to this forum and have read this particular thread. Let's see.
The procedure that's going to be performed on the 28th, you're going to rebroadcast that again, correct?
Yeah, we will. We're gonna
Okay.
we're gonna record it. But for you guys that want to see it live and want to ask Dr. Harris, and even the patient questions, how does the patient? I think it's fascinating to be able, and we've done this before, to be able to speak to a patient when they're undergoing cosmetic surgery. We were the first to do it, here at the Bald Truth. No one's ever actually done it in any field of cosmetic surgery except for hair transplantation. And you know what? It works. People like to see it. It kind of puts them voyeuristically in the chair. And guys who are considering this procedure, I think this is really, a really great way to, kind of see what's going on and see what a procedure is like.
So we go to thebaldtruth.com on a Friday, October 28th at 12 p.m.
You can go to thebaldtruth.com. Absolutely. It'll be on the homepage of The Bald Truth. You'll also be able to see it on gfqlive.tv. You'll also be able to see it on Stickam. You'll also be able to see it on Ustream. You'll also be able to see it on Justin TV. So there'll be a lot of ways for people to check it out. But yes, if you want to go to thebaldtruth.com, and the chat room will be open as well. So we'll make that happen. Guys, I'm going to take another call. Is that cool?
Sure.
All right. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
How you doing, Spencer? This is Tony from Philadelphia.
Tommy from Philadelphia. How are you, man?
Yeah, it's Tony.
Tony, I'm sorry. How are you?
All right. I called. I saw something interesting online the other day that Follica. I guess that's kind of the company that I kind of pin the most, the larger amount of my hopes on. I just, for whatever reason, I just feel like they have the most compelling, case for curing baldness. So anyway, I saw that they had finished their phase 2 trials in July 21st of this year. I guess it just passed. And I was kind of curious as to, I hear a lot of different stories about how long phase 3 can take, and how, and another thing that comes to my mind is, in phase 2, I would assume that they would, whatever they were trying to accomplish with their product, they would have seen results there. And I'm thinking, if they had significant results like what they're saying, why wouldn't they, even with investors, if it's really true, and I can only see it improving the amount of, for the investment that anybody would have made in the company, why wouldn't they show their results?
Well, that's a good question. And I think that, I wish I had an answer for that, because I know that if I was, and I think companies like Replicel and Histogen are planning on moving forward in that direction, showing the results, and they've been trying to get the word out there for their investors and for the masses to kind of create a buzz. Follica isn't doing that. It doesn't mean that something's not happening. I mean, they do have shareholders to answer to, and we know there's real science there. And Katsoukalis is really been leading the way for a long time, and they've been getting a lot of press. But that's a tough question to answer. I don't know why they wouldn't provide more information, especially if it's really they're really finding that's working the way that they've been hoping that it's going to work. So that's a good question. I wish I could answer it.
If they complete phase 2, how long does it usually take to move into phase 3? And then is that a 5-year period, phase 3? I mean, how does that even?
Well, phase 3 studies in general are like randomized, controlled, multi-center trials with larger patient groups, and that can take a while. I mean, that can take, depending on how many patients that they use, it could be anywhere between 300 and 3,000 patients, depending on how many they want to use. That could be, maybe another year. So, it really depends. If they have a smaller, amount of less patients, and they choose to follow them for a shorter period of time, depending on whether or not the FDA, what they want from this type of technology, as opposed to what they would want from a drug, and that could be different. It could take less time.
Interesting. Just because I've seen some of the patents that they have put out, and it seems like they've patented quite a few different devices. And I would have assumed that if they went into phase 2, that they kind of already had their method and that they were going to, apply. And it just seems to me that, like, they would almost need another phase, like because I see them patenting so many different devices, like they're not. Seems like they're still unsure of how they're going to accomplish their goal.
Well, and that may be the case, and I think that's a good question. Listen, I think you have to look at things with, guarded optimism, but you have to be, you have to try to figure out why things are happening too. And there's nothing wrong with being a little skeptical. My hopes are high for all these technologies. I really believe that something is going to happen in the next few years. There's no doubt in my mind. It's a race right now. And you're one of the guys that are rooting and pinning your hopes on Follica, and then there are the guys that are now starting to pin their hopes on Replacel, and then there's Adirans and obviously Histogen. Listen, it's up for grabs, but the good news is there are a lot of companies now that are working on this. When I started doing this, there's nothing, man.
Yeah, and that's the last I've been dealing with it for the last 20 years. The last question I have, and just kind of give you an idea how much I flip-flop on these types of things, is
that's all right.
As far as hair transplants go, like, what would you consider like a responsible amount of grafts that somebody could accomplish in one day? Because I see like some of these, even I think Dr. Wong and stuff, I guess he's probably overseas, like he does like 4,000 or 5,000 grafts in one sitting. And then you have most of the surgeons in the United States, like the most I've seen is maybe 3,000.
I don't think it has.
I
don't think it's a matter of being responsible. I think that Victor Hassan and Jerry Wong, they have huge staffs, that are they've been known to really do a lot of mega sessions. Now the thing is, you have to understand that a lot of what you see online are the larger sessions. They do plenty of sessions that are 2,500 grafts or 3,000 grafts. Not everyone is going to be able to get 4,000 or 5,000 grafts out in a single session because their scalps just won't allow it. They're not a candidate for those type of mega sessions. Now, once they're healed up, the doctor can go back in and do another smaller session, but it's not like anyone can go in and have a 5,000 graft session. As far as what's responsible or what's ethical, I think the bottom line is results. Hassan Wong get great results on a consistent basis. If they are able to do larger cases, more larger cases compared to other clinics, it's only because they have the staff to do it. That's it. So the other clinics who are not doing larger cases, some doctors will say, you know what, I'd rather err on the side of caution and not do these, crazy mega sessions, and kind of, limit it to, no more than 3,500 grafts, which is still a big session. Some of them believe that that's the ethical thing to do and that's the most responsible thing to do for the patient, and some of them just do it or don't do the larger sessions because they don't have the staff. So I think in the hands of Hassan and Wong, they're responsible and they're ethical and they're doing a great job.
Yeah, I guess because the main reason I asked the question is, like, from what I've seen, and I guess in my very unprofessional and uneducated opinion on the subject, it seems like I would need somewhere between like 3,500 and 4,000 grafts to get the results that I was looking for, or the hope that I think I'm looking for. And I just felt like I wouldn't want to have to do it more than once.
Well, the likelihood, you have to understand that if you're going to go in for a hair transplant, there's a strong likelihood that you're going to have a second procedure, even if you go in for 4,000 grafts. Okay. It's just the way that it is. After the graft grow, you may look at yourself and say, shit, this looks pretty good, but I could use more. I would like more hair. And I would say that it's pretty unlikely that you would only have one procedure, even if you have a home run and you do 4,000 or 5,000 grafts. You'd probably go back in for more. That's the way it is. Are you on Propecia right now?
You know what? I'm not. I'm definitely afraid of side effects, and I do have some other medical issues that that worry me about things like Propecia.
Well, then the likelihood of you progressing is pretty high. So you will inevitably go in for another procedure. So listen, I'm definitely a fan of getting more bang for your buck. If you are a candidate for a large session, if you can get 3,500 grafts in one sitting, that's a sizable session, then I would definitely go for that. Absolutely. But, you have to basically go to a doctor that is consistently doing those types of larger procedures. Listen, there's some IAHRS doctors that really are just comfortable doing 2,500 graft procedures. And they don't want to push the numbers just because they feel some sort of online pressure to do so. And these are great doctors. Their patients are happy. They're willing to, they know that they're going to have to go in twice to get 5,000 grafts. But because they like the artistry of this particular physician and because of their track record, they're willing to take that, to do that, even though they might prefer just to go in once. So it really depends on your goals. And it depends on, some of it's luck too. I mean, you can go to the best doctor in the world, and best reputation, greatest staff, and for whatever reason, your surgery is not going to turn out the way that you want it to. That's always something you have to think about.
Well, yeah, I guess it's there's no, even with the solutions they have out there, there's still even stress around figuring out, what's best.
Your hair loss is a stressful situation, man. There's no two ways about it. I wish I can just tell you guys, hey, you know what? I'm here to tell you that this is what you do, and if you do this, you're 100% guaranteed to keep your hair or to regain a full head of hair. I'd still be on the air. They'd still find me. So I'd still be able to make a living doing what I'm doing if I was able to do that. I would love to be able to do that. But the truth of the matter is, there's no 100% fix for anybody. There are guys out there that wear hair pieces that look incredible. You would never know they're wearing a hair piece, and they're emotionally equipped and able to deal with that whole process. But then there are guys out there that, like Joe, he would never wear a hairpiece in a million years. He'd rather wear a hat and a bandage and suffer for his entire life than wear a hairpiece. And then there are guys that would never have surgery. You're considering surgery. And they would, they're more equipped to wear a hairpiece, so they would never have surgery. Or like you're telling me you would never use Propecia. I've been on the drug, or I've been on finasteride for it's like 14 years, 15 years. No, actually longer than that now. 16 years.
Yeah, I've heard you say that.
And honestly, it's changed my life. To my knowledge, I've had no adverse side effects. I don't know what it's going to do to me in the long term. But, for me, the reason I'm here, the reason I do this show, the reason I wrote my books is because I was able to get on this drug, and I wanted to write about it and basically tell the world about my experiences and what I learned about the industry while I, was lucky enough to save a lot of my hair.
One of the things I heard you say earlier, and it kind of brought up a question for me, and I found it interesting and maybe even a little bit disturbing, is that we talked about using robots and finding more efficient ways of getting the hair, and I would have thought that would probably drive the cost of the procedure down. And it almost, just the way I interpreted what you said, it almost seemed like it would just kind of give the doctor an ability to make more money rather than make the procedure more affordable. What do you think would have to happen to make these procedures, a little bit more reasonable to the average person?
I think there would just have to be a lot more competition, a lot more people who are doing good work getting into the field, and because honestly, it's a business like anything else. And while there is some talk that they hope that automating this will drive down the costs of FUE, there are doctors out there that started to automate, guys that use the NeoGraft that actually charge more per graft for the NeoGraft hair transplant. When we all thought that it was going to, once it's automated, it was going to be less expensive. So to answer your question, I don't know what there may be some doctors out there that choose to figure out a way, to lower the costs for the consumer. But like any other business, I think these guys just want to make if they're offering a good service, they want to make as much money doing what they do well as possible. And I guess you can't blame them for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I have my own agenda, and it's definitely different than theirs.
Yeah, and listen, the bottom line is, I always say this, is results. You know, if these guys can produce the results and change people's lives, and if there are guys that are willing to pay it, then, you know, the market's going to dictate what the cost is going to be. If people are willing to pay it, and it's a good process and it's a good procedure, then these guys are going to get as much as they can. And that's capitalism. That's just the way of life, man. You know, I wish it was cheaper. I wish it was cheaper for the average guy. And you know what? Maybe it will be to some degree, you know, with some clinics. Maybe FUEs will be more comparable to, you know, traditional hair transplants, where it's like $5 or $6 a graft or $4 a graft, as opposed to $10 a graft or $12 a graft. In some cases, some guys are charging $20 a graft for automated FUE, and guys are paying it.
Crazy.
It is crazy, man. But look, it's hair. The whole thing is crazy. Listen, I'm gonna take another quick phone call, and then I gotta get off the air on time tonight. But listen, I always appreciate the call, man.
Yeah, I appreciate your candidness, and thanks for the truth. Right?
Oh, you got it, man. Thanks. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hi, Spencer. This is Frank.
Frank, how are you?
Hi.
Frank
good.
from Queens?
Good. No, Los Angeles.
Frank from Los Angeles. How are you, man?
Yes. Good, Spencer. Good. Thank you for taking my call. It's been about 6 months since I called you, and the last time I called you, you know, I was thinking about A-cell. I had gone to Dr. Greco before,
right?
You know, about 18 months ago. I didn't really see any results, so I didn't go back after 10 months.
Right.
And then, of course, you know, Xandrox, they stopped selling that. I think it was this past February, so I stopped using that, and that could have caused a shed. I'm not quite sure, but I'm just, you know, I guess this call is mainly about next steps. Like, what would you recommend?
Well, I would say that if you stopped using Xandrox, which everyone had to, I mean, it definitely would cause a shed. You know, did you replace it with any other type of minoxidil solution?
No, but I was already using the 5% in the morning, and yeah, so I use it morning and night, but there's just the 5%.
All right. And how is the shedding now?
You know, Spencer, it's hard to say. It's just progressively gotten thinner. That's all I can say.
So,
and go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as far as your next steps are concerned, you're on finasteride as well?
Yes, I take a half of a ProScar.
Okay, for how long?
I've been taking that for 10 years.
All right, and so you've been doing well using finasteride and Xandrox.
Spencer, I would say in about 2007, 2008 is when I noticed that it wasn't really holding for me,
right.
That it was maybe just had slowed the process down for me. Previous to that, the first 7 years, you know, it looked great. You know, it's completely stopped where my hair loss was going. So that's when I brought, you know, about 2007 is when I started the Xandrox, and I used that for 3 years. Never really thought that made a difference anyways.
Right.
And you and I previously had talked about, well, maybe you ought to wean yourself off of those. I'm not right now, just with the change that my hair has got, the continued thinning, I don't want to stop the Rogaine 5% just yet. I don't want to take that step just yet.
Well, I think that's a reasonable, you know, thing, because if you know, especially if you're dealing with shedding, if you stopped using the Rogaine, you're going to go through a massive shed.
Yeah. Again, it's just am I going to get any of that shed hair back?
You can, for sure. It really depends on where it was in your cycle. You know, if these are all miniaturized hairs to some degree anyway. But were they to the point where you were only going to get, you know, one more cycle out of them? Maybe those hairs won't come back. But if they were just, you know, relatively newly miniaturized hairs that were kind of being held in with the use of these topicals, then there's a good chance you'd get some of it back.
And when would I start to notice that?
You know, you should notice it probably about, you know, within 3 to 6 months after you started initially shedding. So, you know, it doesn't mean that's not going to happen. But sometimes when you're going through an active shed, what happens is as you lose hair, there's new hair growing back, or, you know, the hair that shed, some of it is growing back. But because you're continuing to lose, you're not really noticing any, you know, any change. You're not noticing anything positive. So sometimes you have to kind of get that telogen effluvium in check before you can actually notice that, you know, wait a second, this is growing back.
I can't even really say for sure that it was shedding. I wasn't doing pull tests and whatnot. I wasn't doing that, so I really can't say for sure. It's just thinner, bottom line. You know, one next step I was thinking about doing is, hey, maybe I give extracellular or ACell another chance and like commit to going twice within 6 months.
Well, but Greco, I don't know. You say ACell. Greco was doing PRP for you. Now he wasn't using PRP. He wasn't using PRP with ACell.
He was using just PRP. You're right. But now he's got this new extracellular, which I did not get that the first time 18 months ago when I went.
He has his own extracellular matrix that he actually makes from your own blood.
Right.
So I have heard great things. I've also heard some guys just like you who've come away who have not had results. There are some women out there. You can check out Women's Hair Loss Project that are writing about. They have kind of mixed feelings about it. There's a couple of women out there that have had really stellar results with PRP, with the extracellular matrix. And there's a couple of guys out there. There's this one guy that calls in from Florida, from Miami. I think it's Frank from Miami, or I forget his name. Forgive me, Deed, if you're listening. And he went to Greco, and he had the PRP with the extracellular matrix, and he had great results. And he's called the program several times. And he's been back to Greco, I think, twice.
Okay.
So,
well, I mean, on the forum, I certainly don't see anybody,
That's true.
There's not a whole lot of people talking about it being successful.
That's true. And a lot of the guys that have success, just kind of like walk away. And sadly, they're not helping their fellow sufferers out there, our brethren, and taking the time to post their results on the forum. Usually, a lot of stuff that you see on message forums in general are the guys that are kind of unhappy. Sadly, that's just the way it is.
Well,
listen, I got to close up shop actually on time tonight. So if you want to call back next week, I'd be more than happy.
Yes.
Call in earlier.
One last question: does Adderall interact with finasteride at all? Is that one of the drugs?
According to Merck and according to the PDR, really there is no drug interaction with finasteride. No drug out there really has an adverse interaction or a contraindication with finasteride, which is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. So Adderall is not on a list of drugs that contributes to hair loss or anything like that.
Well, Adderall on any of these types of drugs, including what's the other drug that's like Adderall? I'm losing my mind. Well,
Ritalin.
Ritalin, yeah, can definitely contribute to hair loss, but it's kind of low on the list of side effects. So it's possible. But listen, man, I would love to be able to help you out a little bit more tonight.
Thank you for taking my call.
But I wish you the best. And call in early next week, and we can take some more time. All right.
Thank you for taking my call.
Okay,
Thank you.
Take care. Good luck.
Bye.
All right, let me pod up Johnny and Joe. Guys, I got to close up shop.
Great show.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Thanks for calling in.
Excellent. Great show, man. Great and informative show. This is the kind of show I like.
Well, you like all hair loss stuff. That's what you like.
Right.
I'll see you guys either Friday or next Sunday, Spencer.
Say it again?
Either Friday or next Sunday, or this next Sunday. I'll chat with you fellas.
Johnny, take over work on Friday so you can call Spencer up at 12 o'clock, man.
I don't think I'm going to be able to. I'd like to, Joe, but this Friday is not going to be. I can't swing it.
Well, you guys could also, you could all view it and listen to it on your cell phones if you have smartphones, Androids or iPhones. You'll be able to check it out. So maybe you'll be able to sneak away and just check out and see what's happening during your lunch break.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Spencer, and I hope everything goes well with your dad.
All right, Johnny. Thanks a lot.
Going forward, man.
I appreciate it. Joe, man.
See you later, Joe.
Joe, man, thank you so much for hanging out as usual. Thanks for the Joe report. And
you're welcome. Best regards to your dad and to your wife, man.
I appreciate it. Guys, let me give out the website. And, listen, regards to your family too, Joe. I know that you're not in love with Phyllis anymore, but, give her my best.
Drop dead, Phil, Spencer said.
Oh, Jesus. I'll see you next week. Let me go out the websites. Of course, thebaldtruth.com. Guys, if you want to check out the message forum, check out baldtruthtalk.com. You guys can interact and, speak with other hair loss sufferers and really, get the skinny on what's new out there. If you're considering surgery, it's a great place to go. You can talk to other guys who've actually been through the process. So that's baldtruthtalk.com. Also, if you're a woman dealing with hair loss, check out womenshairlossproject.com. Incredible community. And, it's just amazing what women are just so much more open about this than guys are. It's unbelievable. You wouldn't think that would be the case, but these women have the courage to put themselves out there online in this community, show their pictures, full frontal, so to speak, with their hair off, and showing women who are dealing with common androgenetic alopecia that there is life after hair loss. It's amazing. So check out womenshairlossproject.com. Also, obviously, you can check out the American Hair Loss Association at americanhairloss.org. And that's it. So, until next time, I want you all to be strong. God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
I'd like to thank all of my guests today. They did a swell job in showing us how easy it is so that we can really do it. If I can do it, they can do it, you can do it. Bye-bye for now.